topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. And we are almost midway into January. Time just flies. So I want to start out with a kindness story. So first of all, our hearts go out to our fellow listeners and audience in LA, and we are praying for them. And I want to share a beautiful kindness story. So one of my clients, actually, who lives in Texas, invited few of his friends who lost their homes to his home to come and stay with him for as long as they need be, because they are working remotely. So what a beautiful story. He's housing 4 of his friends from LA for an indefinite amount of time. And this is the power of kindness. And the thing is that it's beautiful. Kindness is beautiful. It gets you through very, very tough times. So if you are going through a rough time, a rough patch, then our books, The Entrepreneur's Garden and Expert to Influencer, will help you make the meaning out of life and then help you get through tough times. Not only that, but help you rise from the ashes. It will help you rise from where you're at. So when you get our books, you're helping in 3 ways. Not only you're helping yourself, you're helping spread the message, and also you're helping entrepreneurs at kiva.org, where we take partial proceeds from our book sales and share it with them. So I hope everyone is okay, and our heartfelt prayers are with you. So let's welcome our guest. Welcome, Carlamae.
Hi, Divya. Thank you.
So we usually start out with some memories or some remarkable moments from a time when you were young and that left a positive mark on you.
Wow. Well, thinking back, I was always very different. I was very creative, very musical. I was kind of put out as gifted in that way. And that being able to be who I was when I was younger and do the music and just be able to use my creativity was so beautiful, that with my parents allowing me to be different and to be who I was. So that really comes back as something that was so special growing up.
Of course, and allowing the space for the child to express themselves, just like as it is
Yes.
for an individual to express themselves as they grow. So the question is that, like, it brings. So when you say that you're musical, were you interested in singing, or were you leaning towards one of the musical instruments?
Well, I loved to sing and I still do. And I also played piano. I started guitar, didn't get very far, but I have a beautiful guitar sitting in its case, as well as flute. I played flute in the band at school and then ended up going to to get awards actually for top flautist. So I have not picked my flute up. Again, I have a beautiful flute sitting in its case. But that was all, I guess, in my younger years.
So you mentioned that, you were into the creativity. So what interest did your life take as you grew up?
Well, very different, actually. So I did music. I went in school. I loved music. And, so I was in band and choir, drama, all that kind of stuff. But then I ended up also going into psych and sociology, and then got a minor in music in university. Before that, though, I had the opportunity to travel around in Ireland and started up a group with Ireland Arise. So it was a faith-based group. And so we sang around Ireland for a while. And then I ended up also going to Nashville at the age of 19 and working with some AR reps and getting some music and looking into doing some recording. But then, of course, I have to come back and, go to university, because every child has, every good child has to go to university, get their degrees. So I did psych and sociology, as I said, and a minor in music. I really, really wanted to work in the schools with young girls, just teaching them about empowerment and how they can build themselves up. But I was told that I would have to go back and get a teaching degree. But I didn't want to teach. I just wanted to work with the young girls at that time. So I ended up going into oil and gas, because I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and oil and gas is a big thing here. So did PR and marketing for a number of years. And then at the age of 26, decided that I needed a change and put my name in to become a police officer.
Oh, okay. So that's a huge transition, working with girls, music. And what was behind that decision?
Well, I think there was a couple of things. The first thing was, in oil and gas at that time, now this was, quite a while ago, women were not able to move up as they are now. And so I felt stuck.
Mhm.
And at that time, I wanted to be able to do a job where men and women do the same thing and get paid the same. And again, I'm not like this rah, girl, all girl power, bra burning, that kind of thing. But because I really feel that men and women have so much to offer from each side. And I think when we can work together, man, you could have such an amazing company with using both male and females, right? So one of the things that I really noticed is I wanted to do something where I was getting paid the same and doing the same job. So when I looked into policing, that's exactly what it was. What I did not realize, though, is it sure takes a lot of gusto. I'd never been in a fight before. I'd never touched or handled a weapon of any type, so any kind of gun. This was all new to me. So going in here, I mean, I have nails. I like my makeup and hair done. I love fashion. So, when you look at, excuse me, when you look at the police, and especially in Calgary, we have our lovely blue polyester uniforms, right? So, so it kind of, the coolest thing when I look at with policing, though, is it, well, I guess when I was starting to go through the process, I was also diagnosed with cancer at that time. And so when looking back now, that was, I think that was kind of one of these, I want to call it a little speed bump, because I could have looked at it two ways. It could have been a huge devastation of, I can't believe I have cancer, how terrible, and kind of stopped everything with the process of going through to get into the police. Or as I did, I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to keep on doing my treatment, and I'm going to keep going through the process, because I really felt that the doors were opening for me very quickly with policing. And other people had been deferred for a year, 18 months. They would fail the polygraph, they would fail different things. But yet for myself, everything was just going. So I thought, I don't want to stop that momentum. And I really believed that with my treatment, I was going to be able to do both.
That's really courageous. And you mentioned that things were aligned for you as you were going through. And I'm assuming that there was a lot of physical training as well.
Yes. And I counted 72 bruises on my body one day after we went through kind of the multiple assailant attacks. And now this was all through training.
Of
But
course.
again, I had never been in a fight before. I had, it was all new. And so I was looking at these bruises. My first thought was, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into? And is this something that I want to keep going in? Because this was not something that I was used to.
Mm. And what made you stay the course? Because as you mentioned that you wanted to be in a place, where you could do the same thing. It was not competition. It is just that, like, I want to not feel stuck. I want to be able to keep on moving on. And here you are. I mean, you were in a very difficult situation. People fold under, like, especially during the time of cancer. And here you are challenging your body. So tell us, what were the lessons you learned and how did you move through that tough time?
Well, one of the biggest things for me is I'm a woman of faith, and so prayer for me was huge, and a community that was so huge as well. Whether it was our church community, my family, I had so much support in so many different areas, and I believe mind over matter for myself. Sometimes you really have to, it's like that little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. I know I can, and just keep going. And I look at even in days now, I mean, things happen that are out of our control. Things happen that maybe it's a consequence of something that we did, but we have a choice. Are we going to keep going or are we not? And for myself, it was, I've got to do this because I really believe this is where I'm supposed to be. And as I powered through and got into policing, it was one of the best decisions I ever did. I loved what I did. And to this day, I have no regrets of being part of the police department.
So, what would you say were your best moments from that journey and what brought you that satisfaction?
Um, I think a few things. Number one, serving. I love serving people and just being there for people. And when you when you talk to people who want to be officers or nurses, excuse me, or nurses or somebody, they want to help people. That's what we want to do. But it's a very different way of helping people because we can have such a huge impact, but people can have such a huge impact on me as well because you start seeing things through different people's eyes. So, you go to, for instance, you go to a call and it could be a break and enter. And this may have been your fifth break and enter call that I've attended, say, for that day. But that
Mm-hmm.
family that it happened to that you are at now, they have never had to deal with police before. They've never had anything like this happen. So now they feel that their home, their sanctuary has been invaded. And they have, whether stuff was taken or not, or the home was, messed and destroyed or not, that's not the point. The point is you are now going to something that their whole life has been turned upside down. So
Mm-hmm.
how you go and you treat them and you sit with them and just allow them to be, that is a huge thing. And that can make or break somebody's day or even life in how you treat them. So that was a huge thing to learn. And I think another big thing for me for one of the best times was being a school resource officer. I was working in the high schools for 8.5 years and absolutely loved it. These youth that I worked with and the staff, I learned so much through them. And even to this day, I still get calls and, Facebook messages of people who are having kids or getting married or, onto their second or third degrees or masters. And so there's been such a relationship that was built through me even being a police officer, enforcing rules at the school, but still being able to have that and build those relationships.
Mm-hmm. So, what are some of the ways where you can create that space, ask the right questions? And these could be sensitive topics. You mentioned that, you were going in and talking with families who had their whole life turned upside down. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur or a parent or a teacher or a executive in a profession. I mean, it could be with anyone going through something similar in different form or shape. What are some of the ways?
So some of the ways that really worked, and I've kind of continued to use, and like you say, even from the executive level, when you're working with some of the Gen Zs, I guess we can call them now. But some of the big things, number one is no judgment. That is so huge, because no matter if we're a parent or, or a teacher or, working in an executive or supervisory role, we all bring in our own biases. We all have our own things that this is how we do stuff. This is the right way. Yet, especially when you're dealing with youth, sometimes when they want to come and just talk to you about something, they don't want an answer, or they don't want, an opinion or advice or anything like that. They just want to be heard. And I think that goes on even for us as adults. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be valued. And those continue on right from youth and right from young kids. If we want to go right down, how many times, do you have a little 2 or 3 year old? It's like, mom, 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 mom. It's like, look, I'm right here. Hi, they just want to be seen and they want to be heard. So no judgment is a huge thing. Finding a safe space, and what that looks like is so different for everybody. For some people, it may be, when you're driving to or from activities, and you've got your time in the car, and I call it, windshield talk, where you can just sit and nobody has to look at each other, but you can just talk. And sometimes those are the best conversations, driving to and from school, driving to and from activities, that you can have with your youth, with your partner. Even policing, when we had our partners in the car, sometimes those were the best times that we would, have really deep discussions about life. So that safe space is huge. And another way with safe space, I was talking to a parent the other day, and they had mentioned their teen is a gamer. They game all the time. They're struggling. The parent is struggling with trying to connect with their child because the parent hates gaming. So, and doesn't even know how. So I said to them, why don't you ask your child or your youth to teach you? Go down for about 10 or 15 minutes and say, hey, look, I want to spend time with you. If this is how it's going to be, can you teach me how to play? And I said, you're probably going to be rolling your eyes fully, but I said, just do it inside. Don't show them. But just go and sit down, ask them for the controller. I had called it a joystick, so that tells my age, but, ask them for the controller, have them teach you how to do it. So she said she went and did this, and they didn't really talk about anything, but, I think he was playing Call of Duty. So she learned how to play a little bit. And she said, you know what? No joke. She said, 3 days later, my son comes home and says, hey, can I chat with you about something that's going on at school? She said, I literally had to stop in my footsteps, because she said, I did not ever think that this was going to happen. But she said, just that time playing the game broke down a barrier that she doesn't think could have been broken down in any other way. So again, it's finding that safe space. And then the last one is active listening. It's so important, no matter if it's with our youth or as supervisors, with our spouse. You get told something, you're supposedly listening, but in your mind now, you've already got the answer. You are going to tell them how it's done. And you've actually stopped listening to what they're saying. So instead, I've had to actually sit down with parents and literally just tell them to shut up and not say anything. Let your child or your youth or whoever you're talking to, let them talk and actually sit and listen to what they're saying. Because half the time when you start preparing what you're going to say, a lot of times that is the important stuff that they want you to listen to, and you haven't even heard a word that they're saying.
Yeah, you brought up some really, really good points that can be so powerful in any situation, regardless who you're with, as you're building meaningful relationships, not judgment. So, as you mentioned about the biases, and like, we all come with biases. It's our brains are conditioned. And so, what are some of the ways that people can get beyond that judgment?
Well, I think for myself, because I mean, I have a 16-year-old son, and you know what? I cast judgment right away. I believe that kind of stopping before you are going to say anything, and first off, really look at and listen to what is being said, and do I need to say anything right now? If I say this, what is it going to turn my child away from me? Excuse me. Or is it going to um, allow my child to want to talk more with me? So that's kind of the first thing, is kind of stop and think. And then I think too is put yourself in their shoes. It just has taken them a lot of guts to come forward and talk to you about something. So again, do you want to shut that communication down, or do you want to actually be able to engage more? So if that means saying, right off the bat, you know what, thank you so much for coming and talking to me, because I know that must have been really hard for you to come in and say this. And then even to ask them, would you like to continue this conversation? Would you like some advice? Would you like me to kind of go through maybe what I've been through, or what do you need from me right now? And sometimes as parents, that is hard for us to ask our child, what do you need from us? Because we think we know what they need from us at most times. But a lot of times we don't actually know what they need at that moment. So I think that really opens up a place where they feel that there's no judgment. It's amazing. So I wrote a book called Youth Truth. And the reason I wrote this book is the youth that I was talking to on numerous occasions, one of the biggest things was that they were scared to talk to their parents about stuff like suicide, bullying, even sex, self-harm, all of that stuff, social media, because they were worried about the judgment that was going to come from their parents, what their parents were going to say. Even if they just wanted to bring some stuff up, they were worried and they were fearful of what mom and dad were going to bring forward. So that is where I thought, you know what, this is where we really need to bring some tools of how to work through this, so that both sides can feel that they can come forward and engage in these hard conversations.
Yeah, it's you're right. Like, and having kids, being a mom myself, I know it's not the easiest thing to do. And it's to find balance, giving them the space, and at the same time not keeping quiet if you're seeing something. And one of the things that I have found is letting them know, like, listen, I'm not here so that you can like me. I'm here to tell you what you may not want to like to hear.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm seeing, and it's coming from a place of love. Here's not like where I'm trying to pull you down or anything. And that seems to have worked as well. And sometimes, they're hard, and they're in such a hard place, because with social media, unfortunately, what has happened is that a lot of parents will, like, I've got some of my clients who will be complaining, like, oh, I buy them so much and all of that, and they don't seem happy. And it's like, don't, rather than buying them the gifts, buy them the experiences. Like, where you're going out, doing something together. Because unfortunately, with and there's something called TikTok brain, where because what happens is like you keep on seeing those reels, you need to have that consistent stimulation to release that dopamine to become happy. And that's impacting the rest of their lives too, because people are so much on their phones and looking at the Insta or Facebook reels that brains are conditioned. Like it needs more and more to get happier. So social media, don't get me wrong, we are here, sharing and getting the message out there. It's important. It has leveled the playing field, but it's also important to use it in moderation. And how do we use it? And that's another story to tell. As you can see, I could go on and on about that.
Well, and I think
So,
what you said, even it's like a drug. It's becoming an addiction.
yeah.
And I think interesting that your clients had mentioned, that they buy them everything. I ended up sitting down with my son and having him do the love language quiz for teens, because I had an idea what his love language was, but I really wanted to see. And the reason that I ended up doing that was, he would say, well, let's go sit. Can we just watch a show together? So I'm thinking, perfect. We're watching a show. I can go through emails or whatever. And then he'd say, Mom, you're on your phone again. And so it's like, oh, okay, you know what? Sorry, I'll put it away. Well, his love language is quality time. So right at that point, I'm like, okay, even if we're just watching a show together, I am off my device. I am just engaged with our show, with talking with him, and that'll be our time. But that's something that he doesn't care about stuff. He doesn't care at all about stuff. But man alive, if I can go for supper with him, just him and I, or we'll take a trip or something, that for him, you can just see the smile and just in his eyes, the sparkle, and that is enough. And so I think that that's really important for parents, because again, we think we know what our kids need, but we are missing the actual point of what they actually need and are looking forward to.
Yeah, no, what you're saying is right on the mark. And also, it's important as parents to be forgiving of yourself, because kids don't come with a manual, unfortunately.
It would be a big manual if they came with one.
Exactly. And it would be different for each kid.
Exactly. Yep.
So, there are so many situations, because whatever you are seeing on the surface is not what's happening. There's more to it. So how can people, like you did mention that, play games or like, just be there for them. But if you're seeing something that's happening or bothering, like, and it could be an employee too, like you can see that they're not in it. What is a good way to understand that hidden struggle and recognize what they're not saying? And how can they address that?
Well, number one, empathy. And again, it's putting yourself in their shoes. So if you were going through something and maybe you don't know what they're going through, but you know that something's going on, how would you like somebody to come and approach you? And what would that look like? And again, everybody is different, but just taking that person aside or even sending them a text. And I know some people are like, oh my gosh, we want to be off our phones. But for our teens, sometimes just sending them a text of, hey, you know what? Can we chat a little bit? Love you. And, and something like that. Right. So they know they're not in trouble, but that they know that you want to spend some time. Or taking them aside, if it's as an employer, taking them aside and just saying, hey, you know what? Are you doing okay? Because I've just been noticing like you're just not yourself. You're not as happy. You're not, or even with work, I'm just noticing that you're kind of slowing down a little bit and stuff. And it kind of worries me. It concerns me. If you want to talk now, great. But I just want to let you know I'm here. That it's no judgment. It's confidential and it's a safe space. That's all you have to do. They will come when they're ready. And you'll notice, and I think somebody had brought forward, well, how do you know if somebody's going through even emotional stuff and they don't really talk about it? Well, if somebody's always really, really happy and all of a sudden you see them kind of really back down or kind of being more to themselves, they're telling you something. Or if somebody's always very quiet and all of a sudden little things are triggering them and just taking them over the edge, there's something going on. And it could be something even to the effect of, say, parents are getting divorced, right? And it's kind of that hidden quiet thing, because sometimes there's shame in that for young people. And even for adults themselves, there's sometimes shame in that. So even something like that could trigger something for a youth that that all of a sudden they need to talk to somebody, but they just, again, they don't know how, because it's that hard conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at work, I mean, we saw that at work with with policing, where people were going through stuff, and it's like, how do we talk to them? Because we don't want it to seem like we're meddling in their lives. But you know what? We have concern, and we want to make sure that they know that we're here. And that's all it is. Even maybe grabbing a coffee or taking your child, to Starbucks and getting a hot chocolate and sitting there, or a coffee with them and sitting there. Because again, it's an open space, and if they're ready to talk, they will talk.
Yeah, very true. It is, like you said, giving that space and letting them know that you're there for them whenever they're ready, and providing that unconditional support. And that goes back again to the empathy piece that you mentioned. It's so, so important. So tell us, do you have any stories or any times where you took people through this journey, and where they were before and where they are now?
Oh, wow. Well, you know what? Can I tell just kind of one of the stories from the book? So the book consists of, the first 9 chapters is true, real stories from the youth themselves, of stuff that they've gone through, what people didn't know about them, and in the end, then kind of goes through, like, never judge a book by its cover, things like that. And then the last chapter talks about tools that are so important for any caregiver of a youth, and including youth themselves, to know they're not alone, and to know what they can do and how they can help each other. And so one of the stories, it's John's Stories, it's called. And of course, the names and all that stuff have been changed. But he was a 16-year-old in high school, never posed any problems, never any concerns. He was always in class, always there. But I just had noticed recently, and I was working in the high school as a police officer at the time, that he was looking a little bit more unhealthy. Like his face was, a little bit more yellowish skin, and he was looking a little bit more gaunt, was losing weight. And he wasn't large to begin with. So, it was quite noticeable. And so I remember going up and one day just saying, hey, you know what? Because I just really felt being led to we would give out cafeteria cards so that the kids could have lunch, because we were in an area where not everybody had food, that kind of thing. It was there were the high-end homes, then the Calgary housing, right? So it was very diverse, very diverse. So I just remember him looking at me and saying, thank you. And the story goes where around 11:30 at night one evening, I get a phone call, and it was John. And he said that, he's like, I don't know if you remember me, but he said, I have doused myself and the living room in gasoline, and I'm ready to end it all. I'm ready to light. I've got a match or a lighter with me right now. And he said, I really need somebody here. And he said, I need you. And if you don't come, he says, I'm going to light myself on fire. And so I was like, holy cow. Okay. So I contacted the street sergeant that was working, just let them know this is what we had, got myself out of bed. I didn't have my uniform at home. And so jumped in the car and went to his residence and just let him know that, I was there, got in contact again with him. And he went through and told the story that He says, nobody knows this. I've never told anybody, but he said, my mom's a stripper. That's how she makes her money. Dad's in jail, brother's in jail. He said, there's never food in the house. Each night I wait up at night and to listen to the key come in the door so that I know mom is getting home and she's safe. He said, I'll get out of bed. I'll go and check to make sure that, there's no bruises or anything on her because of something that happened at the club. He said that there's times where I feel that if I wasn't around, she wouldn't have to do this. And so he said, I'm on a mattress that the springs are all coming through. When I open up my window, I'm looking at a brick wall by a parking lot. There's no sun that comes through my window. He said, I have 3 pairs of of jeans, 3 shirts, and a hoodie. And he said, my shoes, he goes, I just keep duct taping them because they have so many holes in them. But he said, and he said, even when it's warm, he says, you probably have noticed I wear like a hoodie zipped up. He said, because my t-shirts have holes. And he said, so I want to still be presentable at school. Well, I'm on the phone thinking, oh my goodness, I had no idea. And so we were able to get him out of the house. I, called him out of the house, and he did not light himself on fire. And I asked him, once he got out, to put the lighter down. And he was fully doused in gasoline, just drenched. And so as he came out, I had fire people and fire guys and stuff go in to just kind of check the residents out. And as he was getting checked out by EMS, I went in. I asked if I could just go in and see what I was dealing with in the house. And no joke, he had doused the entire living room. The can of gasoline was sitting in the middle of the floor. When I walked into the kitchen and just, checked the fridge and the cupboards, there was no food. I went upstairs, and exactly as he said, his mattress or the window, his clothes, he wasn't lying at all. But this child at 16 was dealing with adult issues. He was trying to be that adult for his mom, to make sure she was safe, to make sure that, nothing had happened to her, and then trying to be this child coming to school. And when we got out, or when I came out and was chatting with him more while he was in the ambulance, he said, why did you give me that card, that day? And I told him, I said, I just felt that you needed it. And he said, you know what? I had not eaten in 4 days. And he said, when you gave me that card, he said, I felt like you were a guardian angel that had come and been brought to me. And he said, he goes, I was ready to go. He said, I don't want to be here anymore because if I'm not here, my mom doesn't have to do the things that she has to do. And all I said to him is, I said, there's more for your life. And so he asked if I could ride with him to the hospital, and we went. And just that little bit of, and now he went off to university and he's got a family. But again, just that little bit, we have no clue what people are going through. And so as you started your show with the kindness and the story, which is beautiful, of one of your clients, kindness goes such a long way. And we never know what that person is going through. And for me, my company is called Diamond in the Rough because each of us has a diamond in us. And many of us have tarnished diamonds because of our traumas, what we've been through, where we've come from. But all it takes is one person to start polishing that diamond and to show us that we can shine, and we can shine in different ways that we may have never even believed or thought we could. And so if that's what we can be for one person, man alive, we can help people shine in so many different ways. So that's kind of one of the stories from the book that, and each story deals with something very different, but each story shows that, you know what, you're not alone. There's people out there that will help and can help. And again, it's about having those hard conversations. And what does that look like?
What a beautiful story, and what a beautiful life journey you've had, Carlamae. And so share with us how people can contact you, where they can connect with you.
So I'm on LinkedIn under Carlamae Sheremata. As well, my website is www.carlamae, carlamaesheremata.com. And it's got my email on there, and yeah, they can connect there. And my book, Youth Truth, which I've got right here, it is on Amazon and Ingram Sparks as well. So any bookstores. So feel free to grab a book and send me an email and let me know if you need anything or want to chat about anything.
That's so powerful. And thank you for joining us and sharing your story and your heart. And we really wish you the best in this journey so that you can continue to make the impact, not just on that one child, but like many, many. So because these are our next generation leaders who will be leading the way. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you, listeners, for being part of our show, because you are the life and blood of our show. Anything we can do to help you, reach out to us, let us know how we can support you in your life journey so that you can live the best life you want. And thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.